They thought we were just noise, a background hum from some blue rock circling a dying star. To them, we were nothing more than a statistical blip, primitive, emotional, barely out of our atmosphere. The Galactic Council had seen it all before. Thousands of species had reached that same point. First contact, a brief fascination with space, and then quiet assimilation. The Council didn't conquer. They absorbed. With diplomacy so polished it felt like hypnosis, they brought entire civilizations under their umbrella of peace and protocol. And it worked, every single time. Until Earth. Humans weren't supposed to be different. In fact, by Council metrics, we were behind. Our tech was crude, our planet unstable. Our species fractured by centuries of war, inequality, and environmental damage. But what they didn't understand, and what they'd regret for generations to come, was that this very chaos was what made us dangerous. While other species evolved in predictable environments, humans thrived in the unpredictable. We adapted fast, because we had to. We didn't just survive disasters, we grew through them. And when the Council finally noticed us, when their long-range probes sent back their reports, they didn't send a diplomat or even a warning. Just a note. Observe but do not engage. That's how unimportant we were. But we saw their ships, their messages. And we didn't wait. We reached out. Curious. Loud. Uninvited. And from that moment, something shifted. The Terran Union, Earth's new unified government, was done waiting for permission to explore the stars. After centuries of being torn apart by internal conflict, humanity had finally found a reason to come together. Not because we were ready, but because we were curious. Then they warned. And when none of that worked, they sent a fleet. What happened next wasn't a war in the traditional sense. It was a lesson. A very expensive, very brutal lesson in underestimation. We sharpen. We learn. We push back twice as hard. And this story is about the moment the most powerful organization in the galaxy realized they hadn't just overlooked humanity. They'd awoken something they couldn't control. Something that didn't know how to give up. So today, we're diving into that story. How a so-called primitive species turned the galaxy upside down. How alliances shifted. And how the Council's greatest mistake wasn't starting a war. It was assuming we wouldn't survive one. Buckle in, because this isn't your average space opera. This is the story of how humans walked into the stars, uninvited, and made sure no one could ever ignore them again. Humanity's first steps into the galactic stage weren't elegant. They weren't planned, coordinated, or particularly welcome. But they were loud, messy, and unforgettable. If you ask the Galactic Council today when things started going wrong, they'll probably all point to the same moment. When Earth went silent for 6 years, and then suddenly reappeared with faster-than-light travel. That wasn't supposed to happen. According to the Council's own assessments, Earth was at least 3 centuries away from reaching that kind of breakthrough. The last scan had shown a fractured planet, still recovering from climate collapse, political instability, and a post-digital revolution that nearly ripped global economies apart. But then came the jump. The first Terran ship to break through Einstein's speed limit wasn't sleek or stylish like the Council's vessels. It wasn't powered by a neatly harvested zero-point core or stabilized quantum loops. The ship's name? The Pathfinder. Humanity had a thing for dramatic names. When it jumped into an empty system near the galactic border, it caused a sensor anomaly that triggered automated alerts in 17 different Council sectors. Most anomalies are caused by pirates or experimental drives. This one wasn't. This one was human. Now, let's be clear. At this point, the Council still wasn't worried. One rogue ship wasn't a threat. The Council had protocols for this sort of thing. Establish contact, send a warning, maybe confiscate the tech if it was too disruptive. But what threw them off was that the Pathfinder didn't just disappear or retreat when they hailed it. It answered. And then it asked for directions. Casual, confident, completely unaware of who they were talking to. The message was public. Every council race heard it. Hey there, this is Captain Lena Torres of the Terran Union ship Pathfinder. First FTL test successful. Sensors show signs of nearby structures. Any friendly out there wanna say hi? Earth replied with a question. What gives you the right to tell us where we can and can't go? Now, it wasn't meant to be hostile. According to the Terran Historical Archives, the response was written in good faith. Earth genuinely wanted to understand the power structure. But context gets lost across species. That message, seen through the lens of the Council, wasn't curiosity. It was defiance. And that defiance triggered a chain reaction. Within weeks, Earth began sending more ships. Small ones at first. Explorers, research teams, automated drones. They scanned moons, cataloged alien life, and even landed on a Council-protected archive world without permission. Again, the Council sent warnings. Again, humanity didn't stop. The Terran Union was acting like the galaxy was an open frontier. Like it belonged to everyone. They shared their findings publicly, too. Uploaded raw data streams, photos, biological samples, even humorous commentary by ship crews. One crew live-streamed their encounter with a telepathic moss species, titled, "This plant is in my head, and it's judging my haircut." The Council made one last attempt to slow Earth down. A trade restriction. They placed an embargo on any species that offered Earth access to advanced tech. The idea was simple. Isolate humanity, and they'll either fall in line or fade out. Except that backfired. A few fringe species, tired of the Council's bureaucracy, started sharing tech with Earth anyway. Not for money, not for politics, just because they liked the humans. The Morvani were the first. A species known for their independent spirit and disdain for hierarchy. They shared data on sublight shielding and energy redistribution. The Zeth followed soon after, offering AI frameworks to help stabilize Earth's early FTL systems. Why? Because humans were interesting. Because they didn't talk like diplomats. Because they asked questions no one else dared to ask. And because, perhaps for the first time in galactic history, someone wasn't trying to fit in. From that point on, things escalated quickly. Earth established semi-permanent outposts in disputed regions. They started trading openly with non-Council species. They even signed defense pacts with planetary coalitions who had long chafed under the Council's authority. What began as an ignored anomaly had now become an unpredictable variable. Earth was no longer just a young race with a loud voice. They were building something. Alliances, networks, influence. The Galactic Council held an emergency summit. One representative, according to internal records, summarized the situation with brutal honesty. We made the mistake of assuming they were children playing with fire. What we failed to see is they brought their own matchbox. That's when the Council realized they weren't dealing with a mistake. They were dealing with momentum. And momentum, when fueled by curiosity, resilience, and just the right amount of recklessness, is nearly impossible to stop. What made humans so different? So what exactly made humans so different? The Galactic Council had cataloged thousands of intelligent species over millennia. Some were stronger. Some were smarter. Some had psychic abilities, hive minds, or centuries-long lifespans. But none of them were quite like us. At first glance, humans didn't stand out. In fact, we were considered biologically average. 2 arms, 2 legs, bipedal, warm-blooded, relatively short-lived. But it wasn't the biology that caught the Council off guard. It was the behavior. Let's start with the most basic factor, Earth itself, classified by some xenobiologists as a death world. Earth is one of the most chaotic, unstable environments in the galaxy that still supports intelligent life. volcanic eruptions, shifting tectonic plates, Category 5 storms, predator-prey dynamics, airborne viruses, and massive temperature fluctuations. For most species, even visiting a place like Earth would require bioadaptive suits. But for us, it was just home. Our evolution was shaped by the constant need to adapt or die. We didn't have the luxury of static environments. So we evolved fast reflexes, faster learning, and a brain wired to expect the unexpected. Now take that survival instinct and add something far more unpredictable: emotional drive. Unlike most galactic species who valued harmony, logic, or long-term balance, humans acted on emotions: love, anger, ambition, desperation. And while that might sound like a weakness, it wasn't. It pushed us to take risks no one else would, to sacrifice everything for abstract ideas like freedom, loyalty, or curiosity. The Council couldn't predict human decisions because they were too used to species who followed patterns. But humans? We jumped headfirst into the unknown because of a gut feeling. And then there's the wild card: unified chaos. Most species required centuries of peace and planning before attempting interstellar expansion. Humans, on the other hand, were barely done with their internal conflicts. The Terran Union was only a few decades old, an uneasy alliance of previously warring nations. But instead of waiting for perfection, humanity moved forward with the mess. Different cultures, philosophies, languages, all working together chaotically, but creatively. To outsiders, it looked unstable. To humans, it was normal. And within that storm of opinions and ideologies, new ideas emerged constantly. Humans weren't predictable because they didn't follow a single way of thinking. They followed many, often all at once. One council scientist famously said in a private memo, "They contradict themselves. Constantly. They're emotional and logical, cautious and reckless, idealistic and cynical. But somehow it works. It worked because contradiction breeds innovation. Because failure wasn't something to be feared, but learned from. Where other species avoided risk, humans embraced it. They tried, failed, tried again, improved. That loop, so fast and relentless, made them impossible to box in. So while the Council saw a loud, young race fumbling through space, what they missed was the fire underneath. The need to explore, to understand, to push boundaries, not out of conquest, but out of sheer human nature. We don't just adapt to the unknown, we chase it. And that was the difference, the turning point in the war. The war wasn't supposed to last this long. When the Galactic Council officially declared conflict against the Terran Union, most species expected a swift and decisive end. Earth's forces were young, outnumbered, and technologically inferior. The Council had centuries of experience, fleets 10 times the size, and battle-tested strategies. But what they didn't expect, what they never expected, was that humans would drag the war into places the Council wasn't prepared to go: unpredictability, chaos, and heart. The turning point didn't happen in a glorious battle over a major star system or some cinematic last stand. It happened in the shadow of a dying moon orbiting the planet Dereshkai. The Council had been using it as a forward base, storing weapons, supplies, and tactical AIs. Its location was a tightly held secret. But humans had learned how to listen, not just with machines, but through their new allies, small species, fringe groups, the ones the Council ignored or oppressed. Over time, Earth didn't just build a fleet, they built trust. The Terran strike on Dereshkai was fast, reckless, and, to any sane strategist, doomed. Just 4 ships, not even capital class. But on board those ships were commandos trained in zero-G boarding ops, cyber warfare units capable of slicing alien code in seconds, and perhaps most dangerously, a plan that didn't look like a plan. The Council base responded instantly. Dozens of drones deployed, AI turrets activated, and defense shields snapped into place. By all accounts, the Terrans should have been vaporized. But the attack wasn't about force. It was about disruption. While two ships faked a frontal assault, drawing fire and buying time, the other two slipped into the debris field, where Council sensors, ironically, filtered out the noise, assuming it was unimportant. That's the thing about humans. They count on you underestimating them. Once inside, the commandos didn't just sabotage the base, they hijacked it. Not just physically, but digitally. Council protocols, long thought uncrackable, were rewritten on the fly by a 19-year-old Earth prodigy named Covey Malik, who had once hacked 5 Terran satellites for fun at age 14. Within 27 minutes, the base's defenses turned inward, misidentifying friendly ships as hostile. In the confusion, Council forces fell back, thinking they were under attack from one of their own. But the real blow wasn't tactical. It was psychological. The Council's illusion of control shattered. This wasn't just an attack. It was proof that humans could reach deep behind enemy lines, disrupt core infrastructure, and vanish before retaliation. And they didn't do it with brute force. They did it with creativity, improvisation, and sheer audacity. In the days that followed, messages started coming in from unexpected corners of the galaxy. Minor species, long silenced by Council power, began questioning their allegiance. Some even offered quiet aid to the Terrans, fuel, data, shelter. Not because they thought Earth would win, but because for the first time, someone had fought back and survived. Council leaders convened an emergency session. There was no consensus. Some wanted escalation. Others called for a ceasefire. But the damage was done. The myth of Council invincibility was broken, and in its place stood a new truth. Humans might not be the most advanced species in the galaxy, but they were the most relentless. That was the moment the war changed. Not because Earth became stronger overnight, but because the Council realized something terrifying. They were no longer fighting just a species. They were fighting an idea. And ideas, once unleashed, don't die easily. If this story got your mind racing and your curiosity buzzing, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more wild, thought-provoking alien fiction. Got your own theory on why the Galactic Council really feared humans? Drop it in the comments. We read every one. And hey, if you enjoy stories that mix strategy, sci-fi, and a bit of rebellion, there's plenty more coming your way. Hit the bell icon so you never miss the next chapter in humanity's unpredictable journey through the stars. Until next time, stay curious and question everything.